Welcome to the Propertybuyer Podcast, where we explore the world of residential and commercial real estate to help you make better decisions about buying, selling, or investing in all types of property. Join me, Rich Harvey, CEO of Propertybuyer.com.au and multi-award-winning buyer's advocate. Our podcast features expert interviews, market trends and insights, and practical tips for navigating the complex world of Australian real estate. Whether you're a home buyer, a seasoned property investor, commercial buyer, developer, or simply curious about the property market, our podcast is for you. Join us as we share our knowledge, strategies, and experience and help you achieve your property goals. Welcome, Gilbert. It's great to have you on the podcast today.
Thank you, Rich. Thank you for having me here.
We have a little tradition with our podcast where we start with a thought of the week from someone famous. And this time it's from Albert Einstein. And he said once, a person who never made a mistake never tried anything new. What do you take from the quote?
That is so true because, I can totally relate to that as well, because how can you ever learn new things, and especially how can you be an expert into one thing if you're not even trying, or if you didn't even try at all. Second, if you haven't made any mistake, right? So yeah, similar to, experience is the best teacher, I think.
Experience is a very good teacher. Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you for that. Look, let's get started. I've got some pretty curly questions for you. I hope you've got your seatbelt on and strapped in. But I'd just like to kick off with, I guess, asking you what inspired you or created a fascination, firstly, with property data for yourself?
No, it's because of at least I have to have a better understanding on what's really going on in the market, in the environment. Because as you said a while ago, there's always hype about media telling that the market's gonna crash or the market is gonna boom, right? So we all know
Click,
they do
media
that
headlines,
just
isn't it?
to get attention, right? But yes, that's what sell in the newspaper before, right? Now that's what sell on TVs, right? Pretty much the same, different medium. But yeah, that's what fascinated me is, people can lie, but
numbers don't lie.
numbers
So
don't,
it's more
I guess.
the factual side that you find really interesting, right? Mm.
Yes, factual side plus at the end of the day, you're the person who's gonna make a decision for yourself. So yeah, there's no better thing to do than to
Fantastic.
understand
And what about property
what the numbers are
specifically?
saying.
How did you get into the property market? What sparked your interest in that?
Oh no, because when my wife and I moved here in 2011, um, we were originally from the Manila, Philippines, and after 5 years, we met a couple of friends, actually a cousin of my wife. They're below their 30s during that time, 2015, and they already have their couple. They already have 10 properties under their name, and I was like,
wow.
How did they do that? They're just under their 30s.
Amazing. Yeah. You sort of went, okay, I like that. I'll have some of what they're having, thanks. Is that what you were thinking?
Yeah, exactly. And then I just tried to do my own research and then tried to read a lot of articles. And from there, it all started.
Excellent. Fantastic. So when did you set up Suburbs Finder? How long ago?
We've set it up around 2020.
2020.
Yeah, so it's almost 4 years now. Yeah.
And tell me a bit about it. Why did you set it up and what it's all about? How does it work?
Well, we set it up first as an internal tool. So with a technical background and data analytics background, I've tried a lot of tools before, but there's no tool that met my requirements. So, because the way I use the data is I use different data from different sources, which includes council data and ABS and online listing sites data. So, yeah, I pulled them from different sources, put them into one spreadsheet, and that's basically how Suburbs Finder started, in just one aggregated spreadsheet. And we were able to help friends and family with it. It worked for us. So help friends and families, and they're the ones who told us, why don't you guys build something out of it, so that maybe you'll be able to help other people
It
as well.
sounds similar in my experiences, except I didn't do the data platform. I just did the service of buyer's agency. When I was looking to buy my first couple of properties, I went and interviewed a whole stack of financial planners and other people, but buyer's agency wasn't a big thing back in 2000. And just like you've created, I love the fact that you've created a tool for your own purposes, and now you've commercialized it. Now you're helping other people make the same sort of decisions that you did. So yeah, in the same way for me, I thought there's got to be a better way to buy property. There's no one representing the buyer. And so I set up a system and a process to help clients do a similar thing. But tell me how Suburbs Finder works.
It's it's like similar to a spreadsheet where you can you can add a lot of filters, and then you can narrow down this 15,000 suburbs into 10 or 5 suburbs based on your criteria. So let's say if you have a budget of 500,000 and you want a yield of 5%, you use the filter, and then you want a vacancy rate of 3%, and then you add that filter again, and then it narrows down to X number of suburbs, right? And then you can start narrowing down by
Fantastic. And how up to
location.
date is the information? Because a lot of people are a bit cynical about data sources, saying, oh, they're 6 months out of date. So if you've got a vacancy factor, for example, or a yield factor, how recent or relevant is that in your platform?
It's always updated every month. So there are data that gets updated every month, which is the regular median price, days on market, yield, vacancy rate, and then there are data that gets updated in real time as well, because those are the for sale and sold and rental listings, as we pulling that from one of the
Fantastic.
largest
Okay. So it's really
online
up to
listing
date. That's
sites as
fantastic.
well. Yeah.
So let's say that you've got an investor and you're advising them. A lot of investors get really confused about where to invest. How do you recommend that an investor approach this whole task of deciding where to invest? What sort of criteria do you recommend that they consider?
Well, first is, I asked them, well, it has to start with the budget, right? And then with the budget, has to start again with what's their goal. So this is their budget and this is their goal. So if their budget is 500 grand and they want a goal that's not realistic, then probably 500 grand wouldn't be enough. So it has to be realistic with the goal. And then from the goal, then that's where we start the strategy for how to look for different areas, right? Which I'm pretty sure you guys
Absolutely. We have many
definitely
discussions around budget
do
and
that
the
for
realism
your
or
clients.
how realistic the budget's got to be. And but look, we can help people with 400k, 500, even 350. That we can help them at the lower end, absolutely. And that's really important. That anyone listening to this podcast, you don't have to have $1 million to get started. You can start. And we're getting some fantastic properties,
Yes,
with
that is true.
6.5% yields at that lower end of the market, and that really builds cash flow. It doesn't put as much pressure on your mortgages, and you're going to get decent capital growth as well. So yeah,
Where I think that's the best way to start for people who are hesitant, because at least they're not if it doesn't work out, I don't think it's not going to work out, because that's the safest investment property. Because if you know park your money on property, in 10 years time, it will definitely go up,
Yeah.
right?
Yep,
Yeah. So
absolutely.
there's no loss on that
Well,
matter.
I think a lot of people might fear that, by investing in property, they're going to lose their capital. But I've never seen, certainly none of our clients, but I've never seen in the market where people have lost 100% of their capital in property. you know,
Yeah, and the house prices 10 years
uh,
ago, it's not going to go back to where it was 10 years
Exactly.
ago.
Most areas, honestly, we know, Gilbert, in most areas it's doubled. If you spent
Yes,
400 grand 10 years ago, that's probably worth 800 today, So, yeah.
yes, that is so true.
How do we deal with this kind of really cynical people out there that say, oh, these data analysts, they can't see the wood for the trees, and there's too much data, and people get stuck with that disease, paralysis by analysis. What do you say to those kind of people out there?
Well, all I can say is we're using data every day in our daily lives, right? So why not use the information to purchase a
Mm.
property, right? And um, there's there are only two biggest decisions that you're gonna make in your life: getting married and having a mortgage. So why not use that information, right?
Yeah, fantastic. So you're going to be doing a dating site next? How to pick a wife? Is that compatibility scores?
Well,
Is that
eh,
right?
well, if you come to think of it, right? Now I think the younger generations now are using data
Yeah,
through
that's it.
Tinder.
Well, it's amazing what you can use data for. I
Right.
mean, we'll talk about AI a bit later,
Yeah,
but yeah,
for
it's
dating.
no, I
Yeah.
think look, I mean, I had that disease myself, Gilbert. Very early in my investing career, because I was an economist, I overanalyzed things, and it really it stopped me making good decisions. I was just too fearful of debt, and I wish I'd invested in my early 20s, not my 20s. But it's never too late to start. Even if you're in your 50s, never too late to start investing, right? Mm,
Ah, yeah, yeah,
mm.
definitely. It's never too late. I think there's a fear because people are not educated about it. So especially because they don't teach in school about financial literacy,
Yeah,
right? So property investing is a game of finance. It just so happened there's a house
that's it.
thrown
I
in the
just can't
middle,
believe,
right?
like, I know in my son's school, they taught them about how to calculate repayments for a car, right? But, they should be teaching the
Hmm.
basic principles of mortgage repayments, basic principles of property investing from an earlier age. It would educate people so much better to make better decisions. Honestly, it's a big gap.
Yeah, true. Yeah, yeah. Even if it's not property investing itself, just the
That's it. That's
concept of
right.
investing,
So
right?
you're looking at data every day, right? What do you think are the primary drivers in the property market of capital growth?
Well, one of that would be the combination of different supply and demand metrics. So what I can see, what happened recently is the population growth because of
Yeah.
driven by migration, right? And so um, that caused a demand, right? Whereas the continue of decreasing development approvals, uh, that denotes or that signifies
Yeah.
supply in the coming future, right? So as the population goes up and as the development approval goes down, then what's going to happen more in the
Yeah.
next
Got
12
it.
to
Got it.
24
Okay.
months time, right?
So any other factors you think would drive capital growth?
Um, Definitely the The job opportunities generated through different infrastructure projects and
Mm.
uh, by the
Yeah.
by the government. So, perfect example. There's a lot of things happening in different regions because there's a hospital being built. So, definitely during the construction phase, it will generate
Mm.
X number of jobs during construction. But after construction, why, when it's been built, then it will generate a continuous impact on the local economy within that area because
Yeah.
it will generate
Fantastic.
jobs
I think you've touched
during
on pretty much the
operational.
key ones. For me, it's
Yeah.
population growth and migration, so natural population increase plus influx from overseas. Secondly, you've mentioned infrastructure, and third, it's about the diversity of employment opportunities and people's wages. The level of income and also money supply is a
Yeah.
huge factor, and money supply incorporates interest rates. So we saw during COVID, we had a mortgage rate of like 2%, cash rate was like 0.1, so it's basically like free money, and we just saw the underlying demand for property go mad, literally, in an 18-month period. Yeah, absolutely underpinned by high
Because
savings
people
as
has a
well.
lot
So,
of savings
yeah, I mean,
suddenly.
it's all around supply and demand. It's basic economics, but there's a lot more intricacies to that. But we won't get into too much more of that. But I think on the flip side, what do you think are the least important factors for capital growth? In other words, what factors do some investors get really hung up on that don't need to get hung up on when they're looking for a property?
I think they're analyzing too much information, right? I guess we just have to be basic in analyzing what factors should be considered. But at the end of the day, as long as the number um, aligns or as long as the number stacks
Mm.
up and uh, it's gonna help them get their goal in the
Yeah.
future, then yeah, they should pull the
Mm.
plug in buying.
Okay. I'd like to ask you about the concept of median prices in various
Mm.
suburbs. Do you think that
Yeah.
median prices, or the word median price, is an accurate measure of the real price of property in a suburb? Why or why not?
No, it is dependent on what suburbs are we talking about. But by itself alone, it's not a good indication of what's the
So why is
real
it quoted all the time? People talk about the median price of Manly or the median price of Bondi or whatever, So,
Yeah, because it's just median means in the middle, right? So let's say, for example, there's a 3 million house that was sold, right? And then that's the highest, and then the lowest was say
mm,
1.2. So the median would be in the middle.
yep,
So the thing is, their median can be misleading because you're not really comparing apples
okay.
to
So how do we
apples,
compare
right?
apples? Tell me more
And
about, can we unpack this, Gilbert? How do we compare apples to apples for pricing in a suburb? What do we got to do?
well, the best way to do that is look at the properties that have sold in the market over the past month or over the past 3 months, right? So if you're looking at a house, and then if you're looking at a house, let's say for a 3 bedroom with a budget of 500, right? So you can go to whatever online listing sites, check what are the properties that have sold 3 months ago, filter by the same dwelling. If it's a house, and then filter by the X number of bedroom, by the size of the land. Then you have a better picture now. What you're
Got it.
not comparing apples to apples. Plus, you also have to look at if the property that you're looking at is newly
Mm.
renovated inside, then you
Yep.
have to
Yep.
factor that in
Excellent. Now you've
as
nailed it. I
well.
mean, in terms
Right?
of looking at a suburb, some suburbs have a vast array of apartments, some don't. But if you're looking at a 3 bedroom house, you
Yes.
can't compare it to a 5 bedroom house. So you've got to look at 3 bedroom, 4 bedroom, 5 bedroom, or even 6 bedroom houses, and you put them in one category. Same with a 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, or 3 bedroom apartment. They're all distinct markets within a suburb. So there can be vast variations, and that's why when you say the median price of Leichhardt is X, like it's going to have terraces, apartments, freestanding homes, a vast array. And you've got that bell curve, right, of pricing right across the suburb. So is there a better way to measure property
And
prices, do you think?
yep, and I think that's one of those things that um, most of the automated
Yes,
valuations
good point.
can't get it right. That's why there are people like, especially you guys. That's where
Yeah.
you guys are an expert in
No,
in
100%.
doing
We
these
have a lot
things
of problem where
for your
people,
clients.
even clients will ring up and say, oh, but the automated value that Domain gives me is 2.1. And we say, yeah, but that's 3 years out of 8. The actual price of this property is 2.5. Let's look at 3 to 5 comparable sales, like last 3 months that have all transacted around that number. And that will give a much better issue. I mean, do you remember a few years ago, I think it was Combank or ANZ Bank put out an app and you could hold your phone up outside the letterbox of a home and it's supposed to instantly give you the number of what the house is worth. I mean, that's just fraught with danger. It's just not going to be accurate at all.
We really appreciate you tuning in to the Property Buyer Podcast, and I hope that you're finding our expert interviews helpful. So that we can keep providing this information and growing our audience, we rely on word of mouth recommendations. If you found this information useful, could I please ask you to share this podcast with your friends, family and colleagues and ask them to subscribe to the Property Buyer Podcast. It would be a big help and we'd be very grateful for your support. Thanks once again for sharing the links. And now let's get back to the podcast.
So what's the best way to measure property prices in a suburb, do you think?
I guess the best way, because the median's going to be there, right? I think that's the only way that all the sales are being transacted right now. And best would be, aside from looking at the median, look at the number of sales that have happened in that area. Because if the number of sales or the rolling number of sales over a 12-month period is really low, let's say just under 20, then the numbers definitely is not going to be reliable because there are less transactions happen. So the sample size for getting that median is
Yep.
definitely not going to be as
Very
accurate
good point. And
as
to that point
possible.
too, actually, Gilbert, that's an indicator. The volume of sales, the more sales, the more accurate the number. It's not that we don't use median prices at all. We still need to use it in our discussions, and it's still a reasonable indicator. But you've got to, anyone listening to this podcast, you've got to put pricing into context. And nothing beats getting out on the weekend, looking at properties, seeing what the asking price is, seeing what the eventual selling price is, tracking auction results, where you start to
Yes.
get a feel for how these numbers work. Because we're talking about data here at a high level, Gilbert, but we know that in most capital cities, properties are notoriously underquoted to attract buyers to then make offers. And we know that the price that it eventually sells for is often a lot higher than what is advertised. And that's
Yep.
because of competitive demand. And you've got to be able to understand what drives those prices in a particular area. So let's talk about property supply. We've talked a little bit about demand. What are some good ways to measure the supply of property? And how can investors, do you think, learn to use data to avoid buying in areas that could be potentially oversupplied with property?
Well, I think that's related to the one that I mentioned a while ago. They need to check how many development approvals are coming in or being approved by different councils. So they need to check on the trend or the total as well. Because if the trend is going down, means it's continuously decreasing, then there will be less and less supply coming into the market. Plus, they also have to consider are different suburbs are not the same size, right? So, perfect example would be Bondi, right? It's small, but so definitely there's no more supply of the land, right? The only way that you can buy that is through buying an apartment. And compared to if you're going to buy somewhere that has a huge developable available land,
Let's say Austria or
then
Lebanon. There you go, in Sydney. Let's use that
yeah,
example.
yeah, then definitely, supply is just going to catch up.
Yep. Okay. Mm. So I guess what you're saying then is people need to understand that even checking council websites, and there's some fancy reports out there like the Cordell report, but understanding what's coming online and when it's going to hit the market.
Yep.
I mean, the other thing that's happening in just talking about Sydney for a minute is all of the TOD areas or transport orientated developed areas that are being rezoned right across Sydney. But let's take sort of Killara, Linfield, Roseville, Gordon, for example. There's a lot of developers chasing
Yeah.
sites there. Now, what could happen is a lot of those properties will be built eventually, all at the same time, which will bring a lot of stock to the market. Now, they're not going to go for it cheaply, but it's certainly going to bring a fair bit of supply on at the same time. I wouldn't be too worried about those kind of properties, but if you're buying apartments in somewhere like Ross Hill, Leppington, Austral, or Campbelltown, where there's still a large volume of land or greenfield areas to build properties, I'd be worried about buying apartments in those areas, wouldn't you?
Yeah, I totally agree. Right. That's why, at the end of the day, I mean, investing or buying a property on a land in a good location, um, is the best way to
Exactly.
go for. Because a building depreciates, right? And then I
That's it.
think land don't.
Well,
It's just keep
that's what I say to a lot of our
going up.
clients. I mean, if you can't afford to buy a freestanding home on a block, then apartments can be a good investment as well. We've done a lot of webinars and seminars about that as well. But you've got to buy in areas where there's limited ability for major input of new supply. So, talking about those
Yes,
areas.
exactly,
So,
exactly.
you're talking about the inner ring suburbs of Brisbane, inner ring Sydney, inner Melbourne, for example. They're great areas to buy apartments for if you can't afford to buy the freestanding home. So,
Yep. Or even just the example that I said a while ago, even in Bondi, right? You can just buy an apartment there, but that's so small is there's not gonna
exactly.
be
Yeah,
more
I know. I mean,
apartments gonna be built,
exactly. And that's
so the
all done
price is
elsewhere
just
there.
gonna go
So,
up.
you mentioned property trends a moment ago. I want to
Yep.
ask you, are there any other types of property trends you think investors could take advantage of to boost their return when they're looking at investing in property? What trends should they look for?
Well, the trend that they should look for is, in terms of the yield, then definitely they should look at the number of rental listings, and if you overlay that with vacancy rate, if it's trending down, then definitely expect that rents or median rent, highly likely it will
Yeah.
go up
Okay.
in the
Excellent.
future. Yeah. And then in terms of sale, so they have to look at the number of sale listings. If it's going down, um, with the correlation to days on market, with days on market going down as well, then expect that demand, well, both supply and demand, or demand going up and supply going down, then the
Yep.
effect
Got
would
it.
be just
Excellent. So just to
prices
recap,
going up as
we're
well.
looking for increasing yields, vacancy rates going down, days on markets going down, volume of sales increasing, all very positive trends for price increases. Mm. Excellent. I guess maybe it's a
Yeah,
non-data
yeah.
trend that I'd be looking for, Gilbert, is what I call gentrification or upgraders, and yeah, and I
Yes,
guess
that is so
also
true.
the
I totally agree
aspiring
with you on
or
that one.
aspirational suburbs. So it's always a groundswell of what I call the next generation coming into various suburbs. So you've got the old guard, we have people from their sort of 65 to
Hmm.
80s who've lived in their home for 30 plus years, who are now retiring, literally moving into aged care or higher care homes and making way for the younger generation. Then you see the younger generation come through and renovate those suburbs. And it's very apparent in inner parts of Melbourne, inner parts of Sydney and Brisbane as well. There's some fantastic gentrification suburbs, and they're great suburbs to buy in. high demand from professionals and also tenants and good investors.
If, let's say, for one street, right, if all of a sudden, one by one, each old houses are being knocked down and being built, then highly likely prices will go up on those areas.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. I don't know if this is exactly a data question for you, but it's just more a general investment property question. We all know that location's critical, choosing the right suburbs, and your platform can do that. But how much importance do you place on choosing the right type of property? In other words, how much importance do you place on choosing house, apartment, terrace, or townhouse, and how do you do that?
Well, definitely, there's, I would say 70% um, of the capital growth is being lifted by the location, right? And then 30% comes down to the type of asset itself, right?
Okay.
So between, I guess it depends on really the strategy of a person, because it may be it may be a house, but it's not fit on their strategy, or it's not really the yield that they're after. But whereas this apartment, it has better yield and it fits their portfolio.
Yeah.
So I guess it's a different case to case. But on my investing journey and my strategy, um, any any day of the week, or any time of the day, I'll definitely go for houses, and then next would be terrace houses, and then villa, and then
Yep.
apartment.
No, I'd agree with that too. And that's exactly the same. And again, you're right. It's all about the strategy that you're looking for, and whether you're looking to add value, sort of time you've got to spend in maintaining it, monitoring your portfolio. No, I fully agree with that. Yeah.
Yeah, because we bought an apartment unit before. The only reason why we bought an apartment unit is because we can totally manufacture growth by uh, renovating the whole
Fantastic.
place.
Brilliant.
Yeah, that's the only. Then after that, because once you've done that, the only way for you to increase or to have growth is to wait for X number of years.
I love the manufactured growth strategy. Brilliant. Gilbert, I want to ask you about the latest kid on the block, and that's AI, artificial intelligence and prop tech. What are you adopting in your business in Suburbs Finder to keep up with technology?
Well, we've started doing testing a lot of machine learning on the back end, but still in the infancy process stage, still doing a lot of tests. But I'd say uh, um, AI is dependent on the data that you put in, right? So if the data that you put in is rubbish, then definitely what AI or will use or as an output is also rubbish. Right? So it's important that the foundation itself that the AI will use are all well cleansed, I'd say. Right? So yeah, I mean, my total take on that is there's a lot of um, companies jumping on AI bandwagon at the moment, because especially in prop tech industry. But if me personally, I wouldn't bet my mortgage uh, just highly on the decision, just barely basing it on AI. I would prefer someone I would rather hire someone who's expert in this industry like you guys, because aside from you guys know how to read the data, you guys have the relationship with local agents.
Yeah,
Plus,
that's it. I mean,
it's
you
the
have to,
instinct.
AI is not going to replace the whole transaction. AI is just there to help fill data, speed up some of the, the analytics part. But at the end of the day,
Yes.
it's not going to be able to negotiate. It's not going to be able to access off-market properties and anything to do with that human interaction. You've got to have that human being there. Yeah.
Yep. Because a lot of prop tech now are saying, this is gonna help you guys buy the right property, buy in the right location. Can be true, but at the same time, you just don't want to use or
Exactly.
to be
I mean,
highly
even, I've just upgraded from
reliant on that.
the original Chat GPT to the paid version, and the difference between that's remarkable. But then, Chat GPT still throws up some answers that are very questionable. So you always have to check. And this is what I call the word ground truthing. You can have all the great,
Yes.
your platform's fantastic, but you have to ground truth it. You have to go on the street, talk to agents, do that hard work and ground truth everything that you're doing. It's really important. Mm.
Yep. That's why what I always say to people, people, I mean, who's using our platform, Suburbs Finder is,
That's it.
but the best way to do that and combine that is, talk to talk to people within the area.
That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Gilbert, I want to ask you a question about historical performance. And it's often said that historical performance is not a reliable indicator of future performance. But in
hmm
property, I've often found historical performance is a good guide. What's your view on the leading indicators for future predictions of pricing and where it's going to go?
Yes, that a lot of people are saying that past performance is not a good indication of what's going to happen in the future. That is true, but past performance is a good benchmark of what's going to happen in the future because it happened already before,
Yeah.
right? So the out or the action that had happened previously, definitely when it happened again, what sort of reaction would happen, right? Definitely it will be the same.
Yeah. I think it depends on time frame too. It's a lot of people think, oh, well, if Brisbane's gone up 10%, it can't do it again next year. Or if Sydney's done 15, definitely can't. Like,
Yeah, definitely. It's just a matter of time, I think. Yeah.
yeah. So I think it's really important people having these discussions that you don't make blanket statements and sweeping assumptions because everything comes back to assumptions and the boundaries you put on those discussions. And I think every capital city has got different drivers. And and just on that, we've got different cities right now, right? So how does your data help interpret
Yep.
where each city is at in the property cycle?
Yeah. So what we do have a what we do is we do have a performance change metrics where you can see how much each locations have grown in
Hmm.
3 months time or in 6 months time or in 12 months time or in
Yeah.
3 years time. So you can plot, you can see how on the line or drawing on a curve, where is it now? Is it totally up or is it going down already?
Okay. Fantastic.
Because if it's going down, then there's still an opportunity there. If it's going down, then it's already reached its peak. Let's say for example, just for as an example, Wollongong, say over the past 3 years, it has increased by 45% in median. So that's huge for span of 3 years, I don't think it will still continue. So it might continue probably another 5%, but after that, there's no way that it has to plateau or it has to go down.
Okay, fantastic. I get asked all the time, why do some suburbs perform so much better than others? You can have some suburbs that just kind of sit there and do nothing, and then the adjoining suburb just rockets ahead. Can you give me any examples or some insights into why you think that might happen?
Well, definitely because not all suburbs are created equal. And first of all, it will be, I'd say, because of lifestyle, in terms of for owner occupiers, right? And what are the facilities available within the area? Schools, those are the factors that being, or access through transportations and facilities, right? And then next would be
I think it's
what else?
jobs, yeah, absolutely. Lifestyle. Look, I think you nailed it.
Jobs
I think
as well.
it's jobs, it's
Yeah.
amenities, it's lifestyle, it's an appeal. Some suburbs really they're just lackluster. They've got really nothing going for them. It's just a bunch of hedges and houses. There's no shopping centre, there's no community, there's no village atmosphere. Whereas other suburbs have all of those in spades and aspect and views. So it's really important to get all of those things in the best suburbs you can.
Yeah.
So Gilbert,
Yeah,
I want to ask you
definitely.
about the confidence data. How much confidence do you have in your data, and do you ever get it wrong?
Well, I wouldn't say it's 100%, right? There's always going to be, I'm going to be brutally honest, there's always going to be, it's not going to be accurate as much as we'd like to. There's always going to be a statistical inconsistency within the data due to the way it was, where, and at what point in time the data was collected, and the number of transactions, right? So I would say there's a variance between 5% on that. Maximum would be 8. So yeah, that's why I always say best way to validate it is, pick up the phone and have a chat with
Love it. Yeah. You're just reminding me when
local
you start
people who
putting
lives in the
confidence
area.
intervals back to my econometrics days at university, where we had to calculate statistics with a 95% confidence interval. But I'd rather be 95% right than 95% wrong, mate. So I'd rather use the data. So that's my attitude. Couple more questions for you before we finish you off and let you go. Tell us, what's your outlook for the property market? You've got your crystal ball there. Tell me, we're recording this now in August of
Wish I had the
2024,
crystal ball.
and
No.
inflation printed yesterday at 3.9%, so which is slightly below the 4% rate, and so it seems like the Reserve Bank's stay on hold with rates, which is great. But what do you think's over the next 12 months? What's going to happen in the property market in various areas, just roughly?
Well, roughly there will still be in the next 12 months there will still demand or pressure will still be present on different markets, especially to those areas that have decreasing development approvals, and affordability will still continue to be an issue.
Yeah. Well, I think you're absolutely right. I think that definitely that affordability factor, the housing crisis is not going away. My view is that the government's dream of building 240,000 homes a year is going to fall into a crashing heap, and we're going to be 80,000 dwellings short. That's the predictions there. So if you're an investor, it's a great time to be considering investing, and it's kind of crazy to sit around and wait for the perfect time, because the perfect time is when you've got the ability to borrow and to go ahead and move forward. So Gilbert, another question for you, just on a personal front, what's been your own best type of property investment? Where have you done really well yourself?
Well, my strategy is totally different. It's a bit of a niche, so we are into to buy and then develop and then build and put in a co-living
right.
strategy.
Okay. So multiple incomes from the one dwelling. Great strategy. Yeah, fantastic.
Yes,
Yeah.
that is correct. Because we can't control. I mean, we can do suburb selection to increase our chances in getting capital growth, right? But the factor that you have more control is increasing your yield.
Yeah, great, fantastic.
Yeah.
And just finally, to finish off, what's the best property tip that you could share with our audience today?
I mean, the best property tip is buy property when you're whenever your situation lets you. Do not wait for that moment that I'm gonna wait for 3 months because it's still gonna go down. It's not gonna go down. It will remain the same. Just give it a go as soon as you're financially able. Because the best time that to buy a property would have been 6 months ago. So so the next best time is when you're already able, as soon as you're able right away. Yeah, and then do your research and then engage people like you
guys. Was 10 years ago, and the best time before that was 20 years ago, right? So. You're absolutely right. I mean, we talked to a lot of people that have procrastinated for years and years. I was talking to a lady yesterday on the phone that rang us like 3 or 4 years ago. Said, "Oh, I should have gone there." And we say, "Yeah, well, it's never too late, But I think, procrastination just leads to you making lower returns, and waiting for that perfect time to enter the market is a fool's game. As you say, buy when you can afford to buy. Talk to your mortgage broker, get yourself pre-approved, get educated. And if anyone wants to jump on Gilbert's platform, it's suburbfinder.com.au. It's got a great array of really great data on there. Highly recommend it. We use it for all of our clients. Gilbert, thank you so much. And really appreciate you being on the podcast. It's been fantastic chatting with you. Pleasure.
Yep,
so that's
thank
it
you
for
having
another
me.
edition of the Property Buyer Podcast. We'll be back with another edition in its fortnight. Thanks for listening. We'll be back again in touch soon. Bye for now.
Thanks for being with us on another Property Buyer Podcast. If you have a question you'd like to ask, please click on the SpeakPipe link and we'll answer this during the next episode. If you're looking to buy a residential or commercial property in the near future and would like to get the added advantage of having a buyer's advocate on your side, then please reach out to my team today and send us your inquiry and we'd be delighted to help. Please visit our website at propertybuyer.com.au where you can stay updated with all my latest market updates, weekly blogs and live suburb profiles to help you make better property decisions. We look forward to connecting with you again on the next Property Buyer Podcast.